Moist Charlie Clips Army, I come bearing a gift. It's a moist meter. I'm very tardy to the party moist metering this, so this isn't usual. This is an anomaly in the history of the moist meter. It's already been concluded for a little while, but I did want to give my thoughts on Hell's Paradise. So let's just dive into the main course here and start eating. Overall, I liked it. I thought it was a fine season. I think the animation was beautiful at times and then sometimes kind of lazy, which I didn't really expect. This was a show that had a ton of hype going into it. A lot of my friends were saying like this could be up there with Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer when it comes to beautifully animated shonen fights. And I don't think it quite reached that level, but I still really liked it. And interestingly enough, this is one of the biggest things people complain about, saying that it's poorly animated. You're fucking delusional. I think what's happened here is anime in particular has reached such a high level of polish that everyone is spoiled. They don't recognize what's good and bad animation anymore, especially with a studio like MAPPA, who also did Hell's Paradise. It's a studio that legitimately doesn't miss and is known for incredibly fucking beautiful animation. They did Hell's Paradise as well, but it's not up to the same level that they had for, say Jujutsu Kaisen or something like that. And since it's not quite to that level, people write it off as being shittily animated. Oh, this is trash. It looks like a flip book. I could do better with a Wacom tablet and Macromedia Flash from 2006. This is a disgrace to anime. Hell's Paradise is horrible. It looks awful. Which I think is so stupid. I think it's super dumb. It is a good-looking show. It is animated well. It's just not to the level of which you all have been fucking spoiled with recently with how well you've been eating. The food you have been served in the anime world over the last few years is Michelin-starred top-tier dining. And this show is not quite to that level, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. In fact, I do still think it is extremely high level. I think it's still way above average. So I wanted to get that out of the way. I think the animation is great, and I do like the fights. But I will say I do agree with the criticism a lot of people have, that the pacing is kind of dog ass. It is not very well paced. So as I understand it, the manga is cutthroat. That shit is fucking zooming. And in the anime, they can't quite replicate that, because in a manga, you're in control of your own pace. You get to dictate how quickly you go through things or how slowly, so you can digest it however you want. In anime, you don't have that luxury. So in here, there are a lot of things that don't quite work, and a lot of things that do feel rushed. For example, like right off the bat, you have a weapon master fight, and it seems like it's going to be a pretty cool moment and a pretty interesting fight. But it's over in like 15 seconds. Like there's maybe like 3 scenes to it in total, and then it's done. And then you forget about it really quickly. And then there's, I don't want to get into too many spoilers here, but there is a character death that actually had a little bit of like, prestige to the character, and he's killed off in a really like throwaway moment. It felt like some characters were just absolutely fucking eviscerated without any real care to them. And since the show moves so fast, how are you supposed to care about them? And that continues for the whole season here. Even at like the very end with a character death that I think was supposed to hit hard, it just falls flat because you never really knew anything about them until right before they died when they went through flashbacks, which Hell's Paradise is really guilty of. A lot of the show's runtime, I think, is taken up by flashbacks, and that's a kind of lazy way of getting you to care about a character and understand them, especially when they're just setting them up to die right after that flashback ends. So I do think that wasn't super strong, but I actually do still like the characters. I think the characters that are here are interesting and pretty unique, and they do a good job of showcasing how powerful they are. But I think the problem here is that the show is only 13 episodes, so it's a very short season, and they have to cram a lot into it in a very brief period of time. I think everything that happens in the season takes place over the course of like 2 days maybe, and they like power scale rapidly. Like they learn an entirely new technique that humans aren't even supposed to really fully understand, and they do it within the span of like a single episode for like each character. They immediately fucking master it. And it goes to show like how strong the characters are, but it also feels like entirely underwhelming and almost unearned to a certain extent, because this is like the most powerful force in the world, and they just immediately figure it out and are like masters of it, killing fucking gods. Whereas something like Hunter x Hunter, they do spend a long period of time like mastering their nin. And that just, I don't know, it feels really quick in this show. So it takes a lot of the wind out of the sails. But overall, I did like it, and I actually really like the story, which is something a lot of people criticize, and I'm surprised by. I think it does a really good job of setting up an interesting premise. They're going to this spooky fucking island that no one understands, and no one really comes back from alive. No one's ever survived for this mystical, immortality juice, fundamentally. And the main character and most of the main characters are all criminals, and in order to be pardoned for their crimes, they need the immortality juice, and they all have their own motivations behind what they want to do with their freedom should they find it. And the main character, Gabimaru, is supposed to be the hollow. He doesn't feel, he doesn't care, he's a ruthless killing machine. But he grows and develops throughout the show, and he thinks the immortality juice is real, and whereas other people are questioning it. And it's because in his village, he has first-hand account of someone who is legitimately immortal and unkillable. So, there's just a lot of, factors at play. Is it real? Is it fake? And there's a lot of different things they throw at you with, different layers to how the island works. I'm really trying to avoid spoilers. But I really like the narrative. I did, quite a bit. I don't understand why a lot of people picked it apart, unless they were really focusing on pacing, which I do agree with them on there. But overall, I thought it set up a unique premise and an interesting world that's fun to explore, and I like the characters, so I think it works well. That being said, though, I, again, don't think that it's a top-tier anime or anything like that, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. I know the worst thing that a show can be these days is, average or mid, because that's basically synonymous with not worth your time. But I disagree. This is a fine show that still has a lot of enjoyment in it. Despite some shortcomings, I still think overall it's a good series. And I'm excited to see the second season. Another complaint that I do have, though, is I feel like the show abruptly concludes here in season 1. Everything really quickly in the last 3 episodes wraps itself up and sets itself up for part 2, season 2. And I'm a little underwhelmed by that because I don't like where it leaves off. I felt like it was still in the building process, and then it just stops. It just said, okay, we're still building, but we're turning the lights off. We're done here till season 2. And I would have rather they had a more natural break or stopping point for it, as opposed to where it leaves off here. But it does have a nice cliffhanger that it's got me excited to see, what the truth of the island is. So, plugging Hell's Paradise into the Moist meter, I'm giving season 1 a 75%. I thought it was an enjoyable show. Yes, I wanted a little bit more out of it, but that's only because, like everyone else, the expectations placed on Mappa were extremely high for me personally. And I do think that this isn't their best work, but it's not bad work either. I still think they did a good job with the show. I still liked the show. I just would have liked to see more from it. But maybe they'll clean it up in season 2 and make it really fucking slap. I do think where it leaves off in season 1 is abrupt, but it sets up so many chess pieces on the chessboard that I think there's so much wiggle room for a fucking incredible season 2 that I'm excited. I'm still really looking forward to it. I think the show was overhyped, but it's now overhated. It's not a bad show by any means. It's still good. So yeah, that's really about it. See ya.